Well, thank you all so much. Thank you, Your Honor. I do want to note one thing. I am a Baptist myself, and I have my pastor here, so I will not use that flask too soon or anything of that sort. I want to thank you all for sharing this moment with our families here on the City Council, with so many of our peers, and with our great community today. I note the rain outdoors this morning, and some of you may recall that on election night, it was pouring rain. And so for some people, clear blue skies are this beacon of good fortune. But for me, rain is the thing I look for all the time. Every big life event needs some rain in connection with it. I want to start by acknowledging some very special people and many of the participants in today's program. Bridget Williams has made history herself as the first African-American woman to direct one of our city's great organizations and is an outstanding leader for our region. Thank you, Bridget, for being here. The color guard represents the Kansas City, Missouri Fire Department and the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. Both agencies work hard every day for the betterment of our community. I thank them for their service and their sacrifice each day. I'd like to give them a round of applause as well. Bishop Johnston and I had a conversation before. I'd never had the good fortune of meeting him, but in lots of corners around my campaign, they said, "Have you met the bishop yet?" I said no, and I figured this is a great way to have a first meeting. And so thank you for your prayer, thank you for all that you do for our region, and thank you for being with us today. Or worry not. I have to give a shout out to my friend Brandon. Brandon and all of the co-founders of Veterans Community Project are an outstanding group of young folks who have worked hard to make sure that not only that we're taking care of veterans, but frankly, we're taking care of homelessness issues. We're bridging the truce divide in Kansas City. We're letting people know that we care about them. For what you do for our community, young people, old people, folks of all types in our community, thank you, Brandon. And as Congresswoman Davids noted, rare is it that you get a chance to speak in front of your mentors. I met Judge Benton also at Cornell Law School some years ago. Good things happen in upstate New York, I guess. And he encouraged me to come back to Missouri and make a difference. At that time, I was considering whether to start my career in Washington and become, as I think he said, the millionth lawyer in D.C., or make a real difference here. I have been so grateful for his advice since then and his counsel, and I'm delighted that he's with us today. Thank you, Your Honor. And then finally, in this set, Congresswoman Sharice Davids. She's an outstanding woman. You know all the political background and all of that. But I just want to describe two things about her to you. When we came back from law school, Sharice and I would occasionally grab dinner. And I remember having the most amazing conversations here in Kansas City about our efforts to avoid the billable hour, which we've successfully done, about our efforts to try to make a difference in our communities, and her hard work to make sure that the people of Kansas know that no matter where you come from, no matter your background, no matter who you are, no matter who you love, you have a voice in public service, you have great representation. I'm so honored to be joined by our friend Sharice Davids here today. Thank you for being here. So I won't take too long because I know it's hot, and Bridget was fanning and saying, "Lucas, you got to keep moving," and I'll make sure I do it. So I'll note a few things. Today we celebrate a new administration and new opportunities, a new day in Kansas City. But while we do that, we recognize those who've been our predecessors and who come before us. And you always get in trouble mentioning people because you'll forget someone, but there are a few special people I want to note who are with us today. First of all, Mayor Charles Wheeler is with us, Dr. Wheeler. We're so delighted to have you. And by the way, in case you're wondering, Dr. Wheeler, Mayor Wheeler, will soon be celebrating his 93rd birthday. Did he tell me about his birthday? He invited me to the party, August 10th at Westport Flea Market. So you're all welcome to come and join us in connection with that. I also want to acknowledge, and he's still standing this whole time, Mayor Richard Berkeley. Thank you for being here. A lot of outstanding things happened during Mayor Berkeley's term, not least of which I was born here in Kansas City, Missouri. So thank you for all of the great development that you helped foster in Kansas City. And then I want to make sure I acknowledge, I know he had to step away, but Mayor Sly James. Local pundits and political watchers spend a great deal of time talking about Sly and I's relationship, and occasionally we give them good fodder to discuss it. But I want to make sure that he knows that I recognize his service for our country, our city, the fact that he's been devoted to our city for decades while raising a family, and he made that difficult choice that many people wouldn't, which is to leave a lucrative law practice to serve the community and the city that he loves. I want to make sure we thank Sly James for all of his service, for his bravery, and his passion for our community. So as you'll learn very quickly, this event is in no way all about me. It's about an amazing set of people that I have the honor to serve with. 12 outstanding women and men, some of whom I've had the fortune of serving with for 4 years and who have taught me quite a bit in a short amount of time. Others who are joining us today. All of them spent the last year, in the case of Kevin O'Neill, the last 3 or 30 years, walking the city, talking to people about picking up trash, engaging groups of all types. Our city council features preeminent experts in state and local government, lifelong supporters of our servicemen and women, mothers, fathers, grandparents, engineers, millennials, Gen Xers, baby boomers, community advocates, progressives, moderates, and a conservative. Thank you, Heather. Diversity. But more than anything, people passionate about the opportunities ahead for Kansas City. So to Lee, Teresa, Catherine, Heather, Dan, Kevin, Melissa, Brandon, Raina, Eric, Andrea, and McDreamy, thank you for caring so much about our community. Thank you for giving me a chance. And thank you to your families for allowing you to serve. One other thing I also want to note, and I'll just take a point of personal privilege. Andrea Boo, I've had the chance to get to know her family over the years, and I saw that she's celebrating her 27th anniversary to a ne'er-do-well by the name of Steve, who now goes by Judge, a good nickname for him. Happy anniversary to you, Andrea, and happy anniversary, Judge. So we all get in this endeavor to do something, not to be something. We recognize as council people and colleagues why City Hall matters in the life of Kansas Cityans each day. At a certain point, this amazing, and you are amazing, crowd will leave. At a certain point, the number of press folks in the room will drop down to a smaller number. Although we want you to stay, we really do. But to ensure that we're continuing our steps forward, we have to make sure we're passionate about the key issues for our community. For me, that means working on public transit to ultimately, and working with Robbie Mackinnon, to ensure that we'll have free public bus transportation in Kansas City. We want to make sure that every dollar sent to us by a taxpayer or a ratepayer in our city is spent wisely, fairly, and consistently, and in accordance with the promises we've made to the voters. We want to make sure we give more people who may need a second chance that opportunity to lift up their lives. And we want to make sure, whether it's a law enforcement officer, a teenager getting off of work, or perhaps one of your or my family members, that everybody in our city has the opportunity to get home safely tonight and always. So over the next 4 years, we have some big things to do. Some of the expectations are continuations of what we're already working on. Some may be challenges we don't already know. We have to complete the new airport terminal project on time, before the 2023 NFL draft, and on budget. We need to continue renegotiation of the EPA consent decree so that rapidly increasing water rates that are hurting our poorest can be alleviated, or at least we don't have that same rapid increase. We have to commit to the rehabilitation and creation of more affordable housing and stable neighborhoods in Kansas City, all throughout our city. friends, the vigor and the passion that we need to address affordable housing with is that same vigor and passion that we build convention hotels with, that we do big infrastructure projects, affordable housing matters, quality of life matters. And it's something that Bridget would like. We must be consistent with our promise to taxpayers to address long-term existing road repair and infrastructure needs before the winter pothole season hits. And finally, to the many employees here, and I know there are a number of you that are here, as a child of a lifelong government worker and somebody who knew what the pain was when you would go, and my mother can remind me, 5 years, 8 years without pay increases, benefits that were reduced time and time again, we have to commit to compensating better, fairly, and adequately the thousands of employees that go to work for Kansas City, Missouri every day. And my friends, no issue is more important. No issue is more important. You can have all the greatest things in the world, but no issue is more important than preventing the tragic loss of lives to violence and drug addiction we see each year in our city. It's been mentioned a time or two that I'm a young mayor, and I think the youngest in about 120 years. And I'm proud of that fact. That perspective gives me the opportunity to note that for almost every year of my entire life, Kansas City has been on the list of America's most dangerous cities. For almost every year of my life, I've lived in neighborhoods where young lives, particularly young black lives, were cut short before boys and girls could reach their prime. For almost every year of my life, I've lived in neighborhoods where people were forced or felt forced to abandon our city so that they can live, hopefully, in peace. I don't want to get to old age accepting that as an everyday fact of life. I don't want to be a city where we have ribbon cuttings about stadiums or big infrastructure, but simply shrug about the violence in our streets, the mental illness we deal with, particularly among the homeless, and the drug addictions that plague our city every day. And I'll just say this, public safety is expensive, but the value of human life is much greater. I ask you, all of my colleagues, to stand with me as we commit by the end of this term to getting our city off the FBI top 10 most dangerous cities list. I ask you, my colleagues, to work with our public safety folks, to work with community organizations and so many others, to get our homicide number, and this shouldn't really be a goal, but let's just start at this, to get our homicide number consistently below 100 homicides per year. That's something we just have to do. So the issues to me are somewhat simple, and they're not new. I may be young, but these are issues we've been talking about for a long time, and that with your support on the city council, with your support in the public, we're going to address. Public safety, opportunities for workforce development and stable housing in all Kansas City neighborhoods, fixing our broken infrastructure, fiscal responsibility, and open and transparent government each day. Although some have called this a time of change, I call this a time of renewal. Today we renew our promise to voters, to our citizens, to our neighbors, to do what they expect of us, to run an efficient government focused on good service delivery, like picking up the trash, and improving the quality of life for everyday Kansas Cityans. To remember that momentum has to include us all, to not forget where we came from, and to never forget who needs help. So about 25 years ago, my mother was working hard to raise 3 children herself, and some of her grandchildren are here today. We moved frequently. Our cars broke down all the time. I mean all the time. Chevy Novas would not get you around that well. Walking and the bus were things that particularly my sisters knew. When they were going to different schools during the desegregation era, they caught the Metro bus frequently. My mom caught the Metro bus to get to work. But showing the love and the work and the passion of a mother, I still don't know how she did it. She found a way to get me to a private school at 115th and State Line when we were staying on 41st in Indiana and all these other spots. And so I thank her and my family so much for getting me here today. So I'll also know when I was growing up, I didn't know my father. So my mentors were some amazing men, my uncles Don and Quinton. Uncle Don was a proud airman who I didn't even see that much, and I still remember something years ago. He was sent off to the Persian Gulf War, and he came back, and I didn't even remember him. And I thought, how many lives, how many people, how many moments did he miss serving our country? And that was always a sign of me of how great a man he was, how great a family man he was. And he's not with us today, but I thank him for all he's meant in my life. And I have another uncle who is here today, and it's a name you may recognize, and his name is Quinton. We have this thing with Quintons in our family. And Uncle Quinton was somebody who always told me to work hard. He always told me that whatever struggle you're going through now could be much harder. So pick your chin up and keep working and keep striving and keep struggling. He's worked hard in factories his whole life. He woke up early, raised 2 beautiful children, and continues to be a mentor to me and so many young men today. Thank you to Uncle Quinton for being here today as well. But I want to, I'm getting close to closing, and I'll get Pastor Lindsay up here who can bring us home. You know, I don't want to just thank my family. I want to thank so many others. You know, I see Alicia Kennedy out there. I see Jermaine Reed out there. Let's give them a round of applause. You know, they were raised by hardworking families like mine. Alicia's mother worked her tail off to get Alicia to where she is. I know Jermaine Reed talks to us often about the message his grandparents left with him that resonated and made him an outstanding city councilman for 8 years. I want to thank those mothers, those fathers, those grandparents, those aunties and uncles, the friend, like Rochinda and so many others, that made sure a kid like me could spend time at the public library in the summer. And first it was just to be inside in the air conditioning. Eventually it became the opportunity to read books. I want to thank those who, when I was walking around downtown at about 12 years old, and my mother would just let me kind of roam the streets and walk by Gigi's wig store and all these other places. Those people said, boy, what you doing? You need to get somewhere. But I want to really thank more than anything Kansas City. You see, I'm lucky and honored, like many of us are, to have great family members. But this city raised me too. I am one of those who thinks takes a village to raise a child. And the adversity that I faced here every day, it made me stronger. The public investment that folks like this council and so many others made in things like the library system, like sidewalks, like roads, made me wiser, made me healthier, made me stronger. The churches, the safety net hospitals, the community organizations gave me mentorship, helped me become the man I am today. And seeing people on television like Alvin Brooks, Carol Coe, Emmanuel Cleaver, Kay Barnes, let me know that I could dream of doing anything in this world. So our work now, council colleagues, is to expand that hope and make sure it's maintained to every person in our city, young and old. Our work is to make sure that no one is left behind in Kansas City in our next generation. And our work is to ensure that we leave this city and its diverse neighborhoods in every Kansas City neighborhood safer, healthier, and stronger than we find them today. I welcome the challenge, I welcome your prayers, I welcome the hard work ahead. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless our great city.